Hello friends. Friends, there are many ways of expressing ourselves. When we talk to each other, at that time, it is not necessary to make use of figurative or metaphorical language. But when there is a special occasion, like any program or you are giving speech, at that time, it is necessary to use the figurative and metaphorical language. At the same time, when we write, at that time also it is necessary to use figurative language. And to have this figurative or metaphorical language, the most important way is figure of speech. Now, what is figure of speech? Figure of speech is nothing but it is kind of a makeup of a word. And why do we make up these words? To attract the attention of the readers by beautifying the meaning of the message that we convey. Now let us study these different types of figures of speech. First, we will make the first video to study all those figures of speech which are a little bit complicated, confusing. Then afterwards, in second video, we will study those figures of speech which are in general easy to understand. Alright, let us study figures of speech. Hello friends. Friends, we are going to begin with those figures of speech which are very confusing. For example, repetition, anaphora, refrain. All these figures of speech are very confusing. Why these figures of speech are confusing? Because there is repetition in each and every figure of speech. If there is repetition in each and every figure of speech, then how should we differentiate between them? Let us study it. I have given here two stanzas of one poem written by Pablo Neruda. Name of the poem is You Start Dying Slowly. Let us see. The lines of the poem. If you do not travel, if you do not read, if you do not listen to the sound of life, if you do not appreciate yourself, you start dying slowly. Stanza number 1. Stanza number 2. If you become a slave of your habits, if you do not change your routine, if you do not wear different colors, you start dying slowly. Now let us see what is the speciality of this poem regarding these figures of speech that we have to study. Number 1. The first line of the first stanza, let us see it. If you do not. I am going to take if you, this phrase only. Now let us see the beginning of the second stanza. First line, if you. Suppose, if you, this is the phrase. If you, this is the phrase. If there are 4 stanzas in the poem, in all these 4 stanzas, if the first line begins with the same phrase, we should understand that this is the figure of speech that is called as anaphora. If the line begins with the same phrase, that particular figure of speech is anaphora. Now let us see some more things. If you do not, and here also if you do not, and in the third line also we have the beginning if you do not. If there are many lines which begin with the same phrase, that figure of speech is also called as anaphora. Got it? Now let us learn about the refrain. Now let us see the first stanza and second stanza. The last line of the first stanza is you start dying slowly. The last line of the second stanza is you start dying slowly. If there are 4 or 5 stanzas, and even if only 2 stanzas end with this line, the figure of speech is refrain. It means that the ending line of the stanza is similar. If there are 4 or 5 stanzas, if the last line repeats in 2 or 3 or in all stanzas, the figure of speech is refrain. I hope you got the difference between these two. Now let us see the repetition. Repetition we know, actually we know all. Now what is repetition? Now let us see this word. If the word is do, and if it is repeated 2 times in the first line, we call it repetition, or 2 times in 2 lines, we call it repetition, or it is repeated in every line, we call it repetition. What does it mean? If only single word is repeated in 1 or 2 or more lines, that figure of speech is repetition. Or if the beginning of the first line of every stanza is repeated, or many lines of many stanzas are repeated with the same phrase, that figure of speech is called as anaphora. And the ending line is same of many stanzas, the figure of speech is refrain. Got it? We will study now the next figure of speech. Friends, the study of the figures of speech which are related to repetition is still going on. Previously we have studied those figures of speech in which the phrases or letters are repeated. Now we are going to study those figures of speech in which the sounds are going to be repeated. The first one is alliteration. We know very well alliteration. What is alliteration? In alliteration, the beginning sound of the word is repeated. For example, my big brother baked bread. Big and bake. These two words are there. The b sound in big, the b sound in bake is repeated, and therefore the figure of speech is alliteration. In the same way, brother, br, bread, br. The br sound in brother, the br sound in bread is repeated, therefore figure of speech is alliteration. Next example, long length of lines are learnt. In this line also, the sound l is repeated several times, and that comes in the beginning of the word, and therefore the figure of speech is alliteration. We will take one more example. Full fathom five thy father lie. For. These sounds are repeated. Four sound is repeated several times, therefore the figure of speech is alliteration. The only important thing that we should remember that the sound that is repeated continuously should be in the beginning of the word. Now let us see what is consonance. Consonance word is derived from the word consonant. It means that the word consonant is repeated over here. Now how it is repeated? It repeats in the middle or at the end, right? If it repeats in the beginning, it is alliteration. But the consonant, if it repeats in the middle or at the end, the figure of speech will be consonance. For example, his history is great mystery. Here the word t in history and the word t, I should say sound. The sound in the middle t, the sound in the middle t is repeated. Therefore, the figure of speech is consonance. Now, how it comes at the end? Let us see second example. I have a friend who likes new trend. Right? Friend, the end is nd. Trend, the end is nd. And end is also nd. So here we can say that the figure of speech is consonance, because nd, this sound is nothing but it shows consonant, right? Now let us see assonance. Here also the word vowel, if the word vowel repeats in the middle or at the end, the figure of speech is assonance. Let us see how it repeats. How is your cow now? The sound is ow. Here also the sound is ow. Here also the sound is ow. How is your cow now? The ending sound is ow, that is vowel, and therefore the figure of speech is assonance. Second example, how it comes in the middle. I have not seen your red pin. I have not seen. The middle sound is e, that is vowel. Your pin, the middle sound is e, that is vowel, and therefore the figure of speech is assonance. I hope you understood the difference between alliteration, consonance and assonance. What is alliteration? The consonant sound comes in the beginning of the word, that is alliteration. What is consonance? The consonant sound comes in the middle or at the end of the word, the figure of speech is consonance. What is assonance? The vowel comes in the beginning or at the end, that sound, that particular line will be called in which figure of speech? Assonance. Okay. Now we will study next figure of speech. Now we are going to study those figures of speech which are based on opposite things or contrasting things, or they contradict each other. Let us begin with the oxymoron. First let me tell you all those three which are very confusing. The first one is oxymoron, second one is paradox, and next one is antithesis. All these are little bit complicated, but paradox and antithesis are more complicated. So we have to understand the difference between them. Let us learn the first one, oxymoron. What is oxymoron? In this figure of speech we have contradictory terms. It means that we have two opposite words, two or more opposite words in the same sentence, if it happens, the figure of speech is oxymoron. Let us see the example. He is regularly irregular. Now let us see these two terms. Regularly, irregular. Both are opposite terms and they come in a same sentence and they contradict each other. Therefore, the figure of speech is oxymoron. Once again, I would like to repeat it. If in a single sentence we have two terms which are opposite to each other, that figure of speech is called as oxymoron. Let us see the second example. His honor rooted in dishonor stood. Which two different terms are there? Honor and dishonor. What does it mean? If the person is a thief but he is very honest to his profession, it means that his honor rooted in dishonor stood. So these two opposite terms come together, therefore the figure of speech is oxymoron. The third example, he accepted it as the kind cruelty of the surgeon's knife. Now again here we have two different words, that is kind and cruelty. Now let us talk about the surgeon's knife. What does surgeon do? Surgeons operate and cut our body. For what? For the better health, and therefore it is for kindness they are cruel. For kindness they are cruel. These two opposite terms are coming together. Therefore the figure of speech is oxymoron. Now let us see the example of paradox. And let us see the difference between paradox and oxymoron first. We will see it. Let us see. What is paradox? Contradict itself. It means that there are two statements. If somebody makes first statement and by making second statement he contradicts the first statement, that figure of speech is called as paradox. What does it mean? It means that tomorrow we all will go to school, first statement, and second statement, but some will remain at home. But some will remain at home. What does it mean? In the first statement we say that all will go to school, and in second statement we say but some will remain at home. It means that the second statement is contradicting to the first statement. Means first statement was wrong. That is the thing that is proved in this figure of speech, that is paradox. For example, the most famous example, all animals are equal but some animals are more equal. If all animals are equal, why some animals are more equal? It means that if the some animals are more equal, this statement is wrong, that is all animals are equal. What I say? If some animals are more equal, this is the second sentence, then first statement is proved wrong, that is all animals are equal, right? The second statement contradicts the first statement, therefore the figure of speech is paradox. Let us see the second example. There was one catch, and that was catch 22. We know the famous novel, that is catch 22, and catch 22 is the situation in which we fall. We cannot move to this side or we cannot move to that side. We are fixed somewhere, and that situation is called as catch 22. And here the statement is there was one catch, there was one problem, and what was the name of that problem? Catch 22. So this second statement contradicts the first statement. Now let us see the last example. I must be cruel only to be kind. A doctor can say this, or a father can say this. If father becomes very strict with his children, actually he becomes cruel. And why does he become cruel? Definitely something is there, that is kindness. He becomes strict with his children so that children should not behave badly, and that's why that cruelty is for kindness. Now let us see the difference between oxymoron and paradox. I must be cruel only to be kind, and it as the kind cruelty means the paradox is well explained fact of the same thing that is compressed in oxymoron. In oxymoron is nothing but the compressed form of paradox, the condensed form of paradox. In other language, in a simple way we can say that if there is complex sentence in paradox, the same idea is converted into simple idea in oxymoron. Or if there is a compound sentence in paradox, the same idea is converted in a simple sentence in oxymoron. That is the thing, or that is the difference between paradox and oxymoron. This is well explained and this is compressed form. Let us see the antithesis. What is antithesis? Juxtaposition of contrasting ideas. It means that here we have two statements. Both are in contrast with each other. Very important thing. Now here we will have some confusion between antithesis and paradox. Now let us study. Speech is silver, silence is golden. I have a question. What? If silence is golden, does it mean that speech is silver is wrong statement? No. Silence is golden is also right statement. Speech is silver is also right statement. This statement doesn't contradict this statement. This statement doesn't prove that this statement is wrong, and this is antithesis, and this is the difference between paradox. In paradox, second statement proves first statement wrong, or the second statement contradicts first statement. But in antithesis, second statement doesn't contradict first statement. Second example, many are called but few are chosen. In this sentence, many are called is the reality, few are chosen is the reality, but both of these ideas are opposite to each other is reality. Few are chosen, this statement doesn't prove that this statement is wrong statement, as we saw in paradox. Next example, not that I love Nashik less, but I loved Maharashtra more. Right? In this statement, the speaker is trying to say that he doesn't love Nashik less, but he loves Maharashtra more. It means that he loves Nashik is also truth, he loves Maharashtra is also truth, and the second statement doesn't prove that the first statement is wrong, or the second statement doesn't contradict the first statement. I hope you understood the difference between antithesis and paradox. In paradox, second statement contradict first. Here, second statement doesn't contradict first, but both statements remain individually correct, right? Alright, now there are some more figures of speech which are based on opposition we will study, alright? If there is any problem regarding these figures of speech, please write in comment box. We are studying those figures of speech in which there is a contrast or there is a opposition in meaning. Now the figures of speech that we are going to study is euphemism. Euphemism is a figure of speech that is liked by many people. Now the figures of speech that we are going to study now are very effective. They are very interesting. When we read these examples, we definitely feel enjoy. We enjoy these examples. Now let us see the first figure of speech, that is euphemism. What is euphemism? Euphemism is nothing but to convey unpleasant thing pleasantly. If something is wrong, we have to convey it. We convey that particular thing in a very pleasant way. For example, somebody is died, somebody is dead, and we have to say this sentence. How can we say? We say he kicked the bucket early. He kicked the bucket early means he died at his early age. In the same way, we can say he passed away, or we can say his father is no more. In this way, we can say these unpleasant things in a better way, so that we can minimize the shock. Second example, he was the state's guest. What does it mean? It means that somebody is the prisoner, and that prisoner is called as the guest of the state. So this is the very beautiful example of euphemism in which we convey unpleasant things pleasantly. What? He was the state's guest. It means that he was prisoner. Next example, you are telling me fairy tale. Instead of directly saying somebody that you are a liar, what should we say? You are telling me fairy tale. You are telling me fairy tale. It means that you are not telling true. So this is also one of the good examples. Now let us see the next figure of speech. Irony. What is irony? It conveys the opposite meaning. Opposite meaning of what? The literal meaning. Whatever statement is made, the literal meaning of that statement is different, but ironically the meaning is different, and that is what the speaker wants to convey. Now let us see the example. No doubt, but you are the people, and wisdom shall die with you. no doubt but you are the people. It means that we have no doubt that you are very, very talented people. And we are now here, the narrator says, wisdom shall die with you, and we are sure that when you will die, wisdom will also finish. So this is nothing but a sarcasm. Indirectly, the speaker says that you people are not wise, you people are not talented. But instead of saying directly, ironically it is said like this. Let us see the next example. He is so consistent in his performance. If somebody performs very nicely, and if there is a consistent, it is good to say there is nothing wrong. But let us see what type of performance it is. He is so consistent in his performance at examination that he has never exceeded 0. So what is the performance? Getting 0 marks is the consistent performance. So this statement is ironical statement, a kind of a taunt to the person that speaker makes on. Now next figure of speech is epigram. This is also very beautiful figure of speech. It is nothing but brief pointed saying. This statement attracts our attention and we get surprised. So there is a element of surprise in this particular figure of speech. Now let us see how we get surprised. For first example, he makes no friends who never make a foe. So suddenly we get surprised. Wow, what an example. He makes no friends who never make a foe. So it is quite natural that only that person has enemies who makes friends, isn't it? Second example, experience is the best school. See the second part. Experience is the best school, but its fees are heavy. We have many times experienced that when we get experience, but before that we have to sacrifice many things. Therefore, the fees of this school in which we get the experience are heavy. Very beautiful statement. See the next example. Revenge is a wild form of justice. Immediately this sentence attracts our attention. If we don't get justice, so the people go ahead and take the revision, and that revision is also kind of justice, but that justice is wild form of justice because it is not legal. Got it? Next example, hyperbole. This is also something related to the meaning or something related to a different kind of sentence. What hyperbole means? Hyperbole means nothing but exaggerated or extravagant statement. We say like this, I have told you thousands of times. It doesn't mean that we have counted that we told such something 1,000 times, or we may say something else. Today, if my father comes to know that I got less mark, he will kill me. It doesn't mean that father is really going to kill. Whatever statement the boy or the student makes, that statement is exaggerated or extravagant. I have brought here beautiful examples from great plays. First example is from Duchess of Malfi. Here is the smell of blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. By mistake, a brother kills his sister, and afterwards, when he comes to know whatever happened, it happened because of misunderstanding. So he gets frustrated. He pretends for it, and he finds that his hand starts smelling with the blood of her sister. And what he says? Here is the smell of blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. If somebody brings the perfume from Arabia, all perfume from Arabia, and will apply that perfume on the hands, then also these little hands will not give sweet smell. It will have the smell of blood. So this is the exaggerated or extravagant statement. One more very beautiful statement is there in the play of Hamlet. I have already told you in my video of novel. In that video I told you the story of Hamlet. Now somewhere I had told you that there are many people who died in the middle of the play. Now what happens here? Also one death, that is Ophelia. Ophelia is actually Hamlet used to love Ophelia. Now she is dead, and on her death her brother Laertes is crying. And at that time, Hamlet reaches there. And what does he say? Let us see. I loved Ophelia. What he says? I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up the sum. What a statement. He says to Laertes that I love Ophelia so much that the whole quantity of the love that is made by 40,000 brothers like you also cannot make the sum equal to my love. That is the statement. So in this way we have seen the exaggerated or extravagant statement of hyperbole. Hope so you understood the difference. If you don't, please watch this video again and again, and still if there is any problem, please mention it in the comment. I will try to solve the problem. Alright, we'll continue.